Welcome everybody today. Those of you here live, I want to honor you guys for coming out. As we mentioned before, we opened the service. This is travel day for a lot of people. A lot of people drove great distances to be with family. The hotel Candace and I stayed in, we counted 5 cars from Florida up in Cincinnati. Candace is just heady enough as a Steeler fan to believe all 5 of those Florida cars were there for the Steeler game against the Bengals. So it's her birthday weekend. I gave her, yes, sure, Candace, that's why they're here. It's not Thanksgiving. They're here to see your Steelers play against the Bengals, I'm sure. But we know a lot of people are traveling this weekend and a lot are traveling home. So some who might normally be here may not be. Courtney has texted Candace already to say they're coming in as well. We kidnapped their children this morning for Sunday school and enjoyed a great time together with them as they learned about Samson today. And what did we learn? Can I see some muscles? Let me see some muscles. Oh yeah, he was strong. What did you learn, Ryan? His hair made him strong. What made him weak, Wiley? What made Samson weak? When he got a haircut, that's right. So when we lose our connection to God, we can lose our strength, can't we? All right. So this weekend was also something else. Yes, it was Thanksgiving. Yes, it was a family get together, but it was also a time to divide families all over the country. We know why? It was rivalry week. One of my favorite license plates here in Kentucky is a license plate that has a blue half and a red half, and it says divided house. And it's University of Kentucky versus University of Louisville. And what you learn about rivalry week is anything can happen. We know that because Louisville was 2.5-point favorites last night, and we were going to put the game on, but it was going to be boring because their quarterback has been running wild. They were just going to run up and down the field, and that didn't come close to happening. It's rivalry week. Anything can happen. Ohio State was another unbeatable team as they came in. Unfortunately, we're going to see smiles from those who are from Michigan, and they're going to be obnoxious in their joy as I give this report about Ohio State versus Michigan, and so I will. Ohio State was going to do the same thing to Michigan. I remember telling my son-in-law, they look unbeatable. I cannot see. Their quarterback was starting to finally play well. I didn't think they could be beaten. They were beaten. Something happened at the end of that game. And there's another report I could give you about Alabama, Auburn, but I won't because I didn't like the way that one finished. So I won't give you that report at all. But anything can happen on rivalry week. That's what I want you to understand. It's a crazy time because rivals will play differently on this particular weekend than they may have even the week before. Some show up and some don't. Some understand and some don't. I remember when University of Louisville played the University of Kentucky in basketball. And at the end of the game, U of K had beaten Louisville in a close game, not soundly, but in a close game, a painful game to watch if you were Louisville, a joyful game to watch if you were University of Kentucky. And the word got out that Russ Smith, who was the point guard for Louisville that year, was in the locker for University of Kentucky, congratulating them and kind of hanging out with the players from University of Kentucky, celebrating their joy, just being a gentleman, being a good sportsman, and sharing the congratulations with University of Kentucky. And University of Louisville fans everywhere were horrified by this news. How could he betray us twice? First, he betrayed us on the court. Now he's going to betray us in the locker room. How could this happen? And it happens in that particular case because Russ Smith is actually not from Louisville. He was from, if I remember right, New York. He wasn't, his roots weren't deep in Louisville. Doesn't mean he doesn't cheer for them today. That doesn't mean if he came out to Louisville today, he wouldn't go to the basketball gym and cheer for the team. It's not what I'm saying, but it's something different when you're from an area versus a fan. I'm a fan. At best, I'm described as a fan. At worst, I'm not. I mean, I'm truly not a great fan at all of probably any team, unless I'm coaching somewhere and then I'm all in on that. But other than that, I'm just not a good fan. My wife is. Whatever she cheers for, she's all in. So I took from this account of Russ Smith, he wasn't all in. He loved his team, but he hadn't grown up. He didn't live and breathe University of Louisville. Yesterday at the end of the Michigan game, this thought came to me yesterday, not before. Yesterday at the end of the Michigan game, there was a young man named Aiden Hutchinson. He's a defensive end for Michigan. He had 3 sacks yesterday. That did a couple things. First, it helped beat Ohio State. Second, it broke the record, the season record for Michigan all time, with 13 sacks for the season. Third, it beat his father's record. His father had 11, and that's the most anyone had ever had at Michigan. It passed through his father as well. Bear with me just for a second. I got it. Thank you. But in the interview after the game, I heard an accent. And I said, Candace, listen to this kid's dedication. Listen to his commitment to Michigan. He was he couldn't contain himself. He was so excited. We had seen him in the celebration afterwards with a group of kids around, probably 30 kids. He was leading the cheering and the dancing. And I thought, this kid's so excited. Well, you heard him start to talk. And I said, oh, Candace, let me Google this kid quickly. Let me find out who this Aiden Hutchinson is and where he's from. Plymouth, Michigan. Born and raised a Michigan fan. Now he's living his dream, playing for Michigan. He was all in. He understood the rivalry. He understood that he had never beaten Ohio State. He understood everything, all the roots, everything about it. There was a different buy-in to Aiden Hutchinson than there was to Russ Smith, if you will. This is Rivalry Week. And our theme today is none can rival. I'm going to say that again so you hear. The theme today is none can rival. We know this, everybody has a rival of some sort. If I asked the boys this morning in Sunday school who their rival was, they would tell me someone. I don't know who it is. It might be each other at certain times. I don't know. Ryan's pointing. I mean, I don't know who the rivals are, but we all have rivals. Last night and yesterday and Friday, people were in their homes cheering against their rivals. Everyone has a rival. Every one of us, whether on a field or in our homes or in our hearts, we all do. We rival someone. I want to read you a couple verses so that I can explain what none can rival means. You may choose to go up against your rival by yourself. And many of us do. Many of us will go head to head over and over and over again. And when we're finally, maybe flat out, figuratively on the mat, ready to throw the towel in, we'll finally remember, I have a source. I didn't have to take all this pain. I didn't have to go through all of this. We have a source that probably is untapped for the amount of power that's at our access. Some of us have beautiful testimonies of overcoming things, but I wonder if we should be amazed like we are when someone's testimony rings true. I wonder, why are we amazed? Why is this so astounding to us when the access is there all the time? I know why I'm amazed, because I don't always call out and cry out when I should. The situation is such that we don't need to be in pain. We don't need to suffer through. We have more at our access than we think we have. And I want to introduce you to the power that's accessible to you to overcome anything. In fact, none can rival the power you have access to. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Finally, my brethren and my sister, and I'm sure Paul wished he would have written to the Ephesians in this chapter. Be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God. And when I read this, I think we put this armor on when we're ready for battle, but I'm not certain we understand we battle daily. I'm not certain we start our day putting our armor on. Instead, I almost think we have a rolling armoire that we bring to work and bring behind us and throw in our trunk, figuratively speaking. And when we feel the battle tightening up, then we go to this little dresser, this closet, and then we put our armor on. But I believe this is how we should start our day, understanding the battle is raging all the time. I feel safe in my house, maybe, says youth. I feel safe in my house, not understanding the battle may happen right there in the house. I want you to be aware the battle is always ready because your rival is always ready to come at you. And you may think your rival is, as Ryan said, pointing humorously with a smile and a smirk to his brother, you may think your rival is a person. It's not. When I say the battle may be in your family, you may think your husband or your wife, your spouse or your children or your parents are your rivals, but they're not. That's not who your rival is. It may manifest as such in a situation, but that's not who your rival is. I want you to understand. Even as I read these verses, understand. Be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor that we may stand, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not, and I know you've heard this, but I want you to hear it differently today. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood. We don't fight each other. That's just where it's manifested. I'm thrown in Candace's spiritual way. I'm being used to be a hindrance to her in a moment. I'm thrown in her way, but I'm not her enemy. I'm the manifestation of the temptation and the discouragement and the challenges that the evil one puts in front of her. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. It's higher than right here. Candace and I square off. You square off with whomever. You square off with the person at the store, maybe. The person on the phone that you're dealing with a bill that they're not understanding. That's who you're squared off with. But the argument isn't here. It's higher. That's why I always use that phrase, the devil's endorsement. He's the inspiration to discourage you. Your battle is not with each other, but with something much higher. Wherefore, take upon you the whole armor of God, that you might be able to withstand in that evil day, and having done all, to stand. We've recently watched some historical epic movies, Candace and I. One specifically was called The King, just recently. And they had some battle scenes where as the battle rages on, people are driven to their knees and worse. And what he's saying is at the end of this, that you may be able to withstand in that evil day, and having done all that you can do, to stand. The victory is in still standing. Wounded? Maybe. Bruised? Maybe. But I'm still standing. Standing in the name of Jesus Christ, standing in the name of the Lord, standing for goodness, standing against our rival. I want you to understand that. I'm going to read you 3 words. This is what you have access to. 3 words and 3 definitions. The first word is omnipotent. As a young person, I read that as omnipotent. Omnipotent, all-powerful, almighty, possessing unlimited power, having unlimited power of a particular kind. As an example, they used omnipotent love, which was perfect for my definition. God is omnipotent. He's more powerful than anything that you face. Anything. Any problem at work, any problem in your marriage, any problem in your house, any problem with your health, any problem at all, he's greater. He's greater. Omniscient, all-knowing, knowing everything. Remember one time I was talking to a young man who was in a really dark place in his life and feeling very alone. And I asked him the simple question, do you think God was unaware? And he stopped in his tracks. He said, well, I was, so I was just assuming that everyone was caught off guard. I said, I want you to consider that thought. God sees you wherever you are right now. He sees this. He's all-knowing. And the last word is omnipresent. He's everywhere. The other night, must have been must have been Thursday night, Thanksgiving Day night. The house was quiet, everyone was asleep. We were back home. It was just a pleasant time. And I walked outside. And here in Kentucky, the sky was clear on Thursday night. Looking at the stars, looking at the moon, through my breath because it was so cold here too. And even my breath added to this moment for me. And I stood in my backyard by myself, complete darkness with the light only from the moon. And I felt the presence of God. And it was such a magnificent moment for me. And I sat out in my yard and I prayed to him. And knowing that he heard me. I don't know if you've had a prayer ever where you don't know if it's even getting further than the roof. Maybe you find yourself in a low point and, Lord, do you even hear me? And in that moment, I was just so certain that he was hearing me. My prayer was a prayer of thanks. It was Thanksgiving Day. It was a prayer of thanks. It was a prayer of reflection on the last year or two. It was a prayer on the darkest of my pains right now. And my pleading with God to rescue. And I knew he was there. And it was glorious. Omnipresent. I have so many verses to read to you. I'm reading none of them. I have just one other than the ones I'm about to read to you. But they have to do with nothing is impossible to God. There's the old V.J. Lavalvo verse that as a young person, I heard him preach his sermon more than 3 times or 4 times. Is there anything I was going to do my imitation of him, and I'm not going to be disrespectful. Is there anything too hard for God? Is the verse that he used to always read. And it's from Jeremiah. But instead, I'm going to go to Isaiah, the 40th chapter, to read a couple things, and I'm going to close with a powerful rally for all of you. But in Isaiah, there's that famous chapter 40, the 31st verse. It says this: "They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength." We all know this verse. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. And it's beautiful. But if you don't know the verses before, it may not be as powerful as it should be. So that's the what. What? Wait on the Lord. But there are some verses that answer the why before this. So you got to read 1 through 30 in Isaiah. 40th chapter. That's your homework. Homework assignment is Isaiah 40. But you got to read 1 through 30 to understand the power of waiting on him. Do I really trust enough to wait on the Lord? Well, here are some of those verses. 18 says this: "To whom then will you liken God? Of what likeness will you compare him?" What that verse is saying is, there's none like him. He's standalone. There is no rival, is what that means. That verse alone speaks our theme. There's no rival to God. Verse 21 says this: "Have you not known? Have you not heard? Hath it not been told from the beginning? Have you understood from the foundation of the earth? It is he that sits on the circle of the earth. And I have that picture in my mind. I'm looking out on the horizon as the earth is arcing. You can see it when you're way far away and it's flat, especially if you're at the beach. You can almost see a little bit of the arc of the earth. It is he who sits on the circle of the earth. Where is God? He's everywhere. On the circle of the earth, always seeing you. Verse 25 and 26, to whom then will you liken me? Or shall I be equal? Saith the Holy One. Lift up your eyes on high. Behold, who hath created these things, that brings out their host by number. He calls them all by you. When I read this, he's talking to you. He calls you all by names, by the greatness of his might, for he that is strong in power, not one faileth. Not one faileth. Call on the Lord. He promises not one will fail. That's what you have accessible to you. So when you know that, you can wait on him. Only then can you truly wait. Not because someone told you in a meeting, not because you heard the verse, not because you saw a beautiful meme somewhere that said, they that wait on the Lord. No, because you know he has you in his sights. You know he has your situation in his heart. You know he's right there. You go out in your yard in the middle of the night, and you know he's with you. Then can you wait on the Lord. And then you can go through and survive the ordeal. Whatever your ordeal is, whether it's sickness, finance, whatever your ordeal is. If you trust in this God who has no rival, there's nothing you can name that can rival him. He's bigger than any and every. Helaman, the 5th chapter, the 12th verse says this. And I love this verse. It's under my computer. In my word, I open it up and you can see it's my little Johnny Campout guy, and he's standing. And the wind is blowing on him and the rain's blowing on him. And he's standing on top of a rock, is what I've drawn in my word. So I can capture this verse. Helaman 5:12 says this. Now my sons, and I'll interject, and daughters. Got to take a little bit of the chauvinism out of the word of God and bring the universality of everything to it. Now, my children, remember that it is upon the rock of the Redeemer, who is Christ, the Son of God, that you must build your foundation. I want to say that again. You must build your foundation on the rock that is Jesus Christ. Not on your bank account, not on your job, not even on your marriage or your family. There's no security in any of those. Build upon the rock of Jesus Christ, who is Christ, the Son of God, that you must build your foundation, that when the devil shall send forth his mighty winds. It doesn't say if the devil. Hear that verse. It says when. Believe this. The winds are coming. Believe this. You will not pass from birth to death without the winds. They're coming. They're coming to discourage you. They're coming to knock you off your track. They're coming to cause discouragement enough that you leave your walk with the Lord, that you step off that rock. That when the devil shall send forth his mighty winds, yea, his shafts in the whirlwind, yea, when all his hail and his mighty storm shall beat upon you, it shall have no power over you to drag you down to the gulf of misery and endless woe. And that's where we allow ourselves to go if we forget our foundation. We get discouraged, we get sad, we get beat up. Remember, he starts this verse off with. It shall have no power over you to drag you down to the gulf of misery and endless woe, because of the rock upon which you are built, which is a sure foundation. Foundation whereon if men build, they cannot fall. Yesterday, Candace and I stayed in this lovely hotel. And I wanted to take pictures for my family and send too many back. You know, I know that when I text these back to my family. They roll their eyes. Oh, Dad's sending pictures again. But one of them was from the 9th floor looking down this open lobby. And I was taking this picture. And I said to Candace, can you stand on the edge right here next to the 9 stories? That's all. I want to be clear. I've seen kids up on, I've seen people, not just kids, but young people I know I've seen up on the buildings in Chicago where there's glass. There's glass buildings extended out. Oh, they can't see. There's glass rooms extended out over, 80 floors above. And people are out there just kind of laying on the glass, taking pictures, kick back. And I look at them and think, how can you? I'm 9 stories up and I'm taking pictures and my stomach hurts. I'm on a sure foundation and I'm thinking today, what a great example of how we can get spiritually. We let our eyes tell us that what's going to happen? Is the 9th floor going to collapse underneath me? What am I afraid of? In that moment, my little legs are shaking because I'm too close to the edge. Like it's going to get like the whole building's going to collapse. That's how we can get spiritually, fooling ourselves that something's going to slip from underneath us. It's not going to happen. He's all everything. None can rival your God. I have bad habits I want to get over. None can rival God. Call out to him. I'm involved in a situation that I can't overcome. None can rival. Call out to him. I have a boss who doesn't like me and they're always on me. Call out to him. None can rival. I'm taken down in sickness. Call out to him. None can rival. I want you to understand that God Almighty is bigger than anything that you can list. Anything. Yesterday, Ohio State couldn't handle Michigan. Yesterday, Auburn was winning with a minute left. They couldn't handle Alabama. Yesterday, Louisville was favored by 2.5 points. They couldn't handle in the first quarter, Kentucky. They all have rivals that may show up better than they do in one particular night, one particular day, one particular game. There's not a game that God won't handle in your life. Not one, not a play, not a moment, not a situation that he was unclear of. He sees all. He knows all. He's more powerful than all. None can rival our God. Call upon him. You have access to all you need. I give you this message as a message of encouragement, as a message to remind you that you can overcome anything. And when you do, others will witness what God does in your life. Others will witness the power of God. Others will say, I want that in my life. Your miracles, your testimonies are not just yours. The scripture that talks about the gift of tongues. And it says tongues is given for the unbeliever. Why? What does that mean? That means that when someone speaks in this powerful gift from God, it's to convince others that God is real. When you give your testimony, it's good for you, but it's great for the unbeliever because maybe it's going to be that point that convinces them. None can rival our God. You have so much ahead of you. You have so much to experience. And only you can choose to take advantage of it. Make it a part of your life. Else, you might just miss it. And I don't want anyone to miss anything that God has intended for you. May the Lord bless you with an understanding that your God is greater than anything else in front of you. And that means you have nothing to fear, nothing to be afraid of, nothing to worry over. God can, God will. May the Lord bless each one of you with the knowledge that none can rival.